Hello and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, April 15th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we're going to recap all of this weekend's action, breakouts all over the place. Breakout hitters, breakout pitchers, the latest waiver wire ads, and much more. But let's just get right into it.
Holy cow! How about that?
How about that, Scott? You know what that is? That is a Chicago Cubs call. That means there's only one place we could start. You are up, my friend.
Michael Busch, baby. The breakout has happened. You are too late to add. No, you're not too late to add him. He's only 65% rostered on CBS, but that's a lot more.
That's up like 5% just since this afternoon.
Yeah, that's gone. It's going up quickly because Michael Busch has homered in 4 consecutive games, and he's up to 5 on the year. And his StatCast page is all plastered with red. The exit velocity readings are amazing. He's shown excellent plate discipline, just like he did throughout his minor league career. High walk rate, and the strikeout rates actually not as high as it looked earlier in the year. And it's all been very impressive. It's all reminiscent of what we saw in the minor leagues, where he'd need some time to adjust to a new level. But once he got adjusted, he would take off with numbers that were just positively bonkers. And I'm hopeful that that's what we're seeing now. A couple of specific observations from this weekend with Michael Busch. So one of the things I read the Cubs were working on with him this spring was catching up to high fastballs specifically. He was a little late on those during his time in the majors last year, which they were saying is a common problem with players who bat opposite what they throw. Busch throws right-handed, bats left-handed. One of his home runs, the one off Ryan Stanek, the Mariners reliever, 99 miles per hour up in the zone. He cranked it out. The other one, to just here on Sunday, was a towering home run that I heard the broadcast from both the home team and the away team broadcast, and they both, off the bat, they were acting like, I'm not sure if this is going to go. Is it going to sneak over? And it was like beyond the whole first section of seats. He hit it so hard for as high as he hit it that it had all the broadcasters completely fooled. It was almost 109 miles per hour off the bat. So they're not just home runs. They're impressive home runs that Michael Busch is hitting. And as I said, this is after a stellar minor league career. And, I wish I was more invested in him. I know I was one of the bigger optimists, but you get to a point where like nobody's drafting the guy and you kind of get suckered into not drafting him either. I have him in a few places, don't get me wrong, but I wish I had him in more. I could have had him everywhere as late as he was going. And it was always baffling to me because I don't know. It's just like everybody decided, well, if he hasn't made it by age 26, he's never going to make it. And that seemed to be the whole reasoning, because I think people were more excited about Michael Busch heading into last season when he didn't even have a job than this season when he was coming off his best minor league season and he finally had a job. But anyway.
I'll admit, I didn't rank him super aggressively, in part because of his age and the fact that the Dodgers seemingly gave up on him. They didn't get very much in return for him. But
I think what happened there, I didn't perceive it as the Dodgers giving up on him, because we had just last year at the deadline, there was like, this team is asking for Michael Busch and the Dodgers aren't willing to part with Michael Busch. Like that happened a few times during Michael Busch's long delay in the minors, where the Dodgers resisted trading him. I think it finally got to the point, and it was because they couldn't find a position for him. They tried him at second base. They tried him in left field, at third base. They obviously couldn't stick him at first base because they had Freddie Freeman. And I think it got to a point this offseason where they extended Max Muncy, and they're like, okay, we're just going to waste this guy if we don't get anything for him now. So they accepted 2 distant minor leaguers for him from the Cubs, which is kind of an odd trade. You don't see 2 future assets exchanged like that very often. But I think that was the Dodgers thinking, is just like, we got to cash in now. I mean, we wanted this to work, but we just got to cash in.
And what I was going to say is I still ended up drafting him in a decent number of spots. He's, I think, single-handedly put Scott in last place in the Memorial Magazine League, because I've been in last place the entire season. Yeah. And I think I moved up from like last place in home runs to 4th this week, in large part thanks to Michael Busch. But what you said about the fastballs is borne out in the numbers. He had a 217 xWOBA against fastballs last season. It's up to 533 so far. And he's seeing more fastballs, 60% fastball rate so far this year. There will be an adjustment, right? Like, he's struggled against off-speed pitches as well. It's very small sample size in both seasons. He'll probably start to see more of those, because that's the one thing. He's crushed breaking balls both years. And so that's the one thing we haven't seen from him yet, is hitting change-ups and splitters and stuff like that. So that'll be the next thing. But yeah, right now it's all systems go. Michael Busch has to be in all lineups, should be 100% rostered after this week for sure.
This will be a big test this week, because the Cubs are in line to face 4 lefties in 7 games. They've only faced 2 lefties all season, and Busch was out of the lineup for one of those. I don't think he's going to be out of the lineup. I don't know. Maybe he'll sit against one of the 4 lefties this week, but I think the Cubs are motivated to get him in the lineup now, obviously. You look at the minor league splits. I looked at the last 2 seasons at least, and he's pretty good for a left-handed hitter against left-handed pitchers. So I don't imagine that's going to be what sinks him, but it's so early in his major league career. It's obviously he wouldn't be the first young left-handed hitter to get tripped up by that. So big test for him this week. But I agree. If you haven't added him yet, add him. And I've also moved him up to number 2 in my sleeper hitters for this week.
Again, that is Michael Busch. He is 65% rostered. And Scott, you agree that he should be close to 100%, even in like points leagues? Just find a way to get him on your roster.
I mean, when the rubber meets the road, somebody might suggest a move that I have to say no to, but I can't think of another hitter available on waiver wires that I'd rather pick up right now.
Let me ask you about one name. I don't know how he's not out there in many leagues anymore, but Colton Cowser just continues to tear it up. 2 for 3 with his 3rd home run on Friday. Started Saturday against a lefty. We didn't know if he would be in the lineup that day. He did. He went 1 for 4 with his 2nd steal.
I think
he hit another home run on Sunday.
I think Austin Hayes just got Wally pipped.
Yeah, I mean, but what's funny about Cowser starting against the left-hander, it was actually Cedric Mullins that was out of the lineup against the left-hander. Yeah. Hayes did get a start.
Yeah.
So bad news for Cedric Mullins too, that Colton Cowser is breaking out.
Would you guys rather have Cowser or Busch?
I think I'd go Cowser, but that's real tough.
They are so
both
fun.
Must add.
Yes.
It's closer in points leagues because Busch is going to walk a lot and Cowser's probably going to strike out a lot.
And Cowser's going to steal more bases, so that should
Cowser's going to steal more bases, 5 outfielder spots presumably in a roto league. So there may be some format dependent. Obviously, if you have a different positional need, then that might be the tiebreaker too.
Yeah, I extended my beloved Jurassic Park analogy / metaphor or whatever in Friday's newsletter, because sometimes life finds a way through injuries, and sometimes the freaking Raptors are testing the fences to find weak spots, and that's what Colton Cowser just did. He just found a weak spot in the fence. He broke through it. That's how life found a way there. It's not just a one-way metaphor or analogy. I don't know
the weak spot was Austin Hayes.
Yeah. And I totally understand that analogy because I love Jurassic Park. Let's go from one breakout hitter, or I guess 2 breakout hitters now in Busch and Cowser, to a breakout pitcher, one that we've talked a lot about, Chris, you're up.
MacKenzie Gore looks really, really cool right now. His fastball velocity was actually down a little bit in this start from the first couple, but still up 1.3 miles per hour. And he got 12 whiffs with this. It was against the A's. Caveat there is needed, but 20 whiffs on 90 pitches for MacKenzie Gore, matched a career high with 11 strikeouts in 5 innings, 1 walk. He's been so impressive I think in all of his starts, even though I don't think he has a quality start yet, which is a little annoying, I think, more than anything. But yeah, what we're seeing from MacKenzie Gore right now is best fastball of his career by far. The velocity is up 1.5 to 2 miles per hour from last year. Movement profile looks a lot better. He's spotting it up in the zone really well. Slider, it's more of like a gyro, kind of more of a cutter than a slider at this point. And then he's throwing his changeup. He threw it less in this start than he had his first two, but still 7 changeups would have been a lot for last season. He had thrown it like 15 to 17 times his first 2 starts. So got multiple whiffs with all of his pitches, 12 with that fastball, like I said. I don't know. I mean, I guess the one caveat with everyone is he's throwing harder. He throws 98 miles an hour now. What if he gets hurt? That's a concern with everyone. But I don't know. MacKenzie Gore looks like he's becoming the guy that everyone hoped he would be when he was the top pitching prospect in baseball at one point.
All right, I'm going to give you guys the impossible task of ranking all of these breakout pitchers who pitched pretty well this weekend. Reed Detmers, 6 1/3 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts at the Red Sox. Christopher Sanchez turned in his first quality start up against the Pirates. It was 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts in that one. Bryce Miller, back-to-back quality starts for him. 6 1/3 innings, 1 unearned run with 4 strikeouts, 14 swinging strikes in that start. Nick Lodolo returned with a bang at the White Sox. 5 2/3 shutout innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. Ronel Blanco, it's now 3 straight quality starts for him, and he's now done it 2 times in a row against the Texas Rangers, which is incredibly impressive. And then the aforementioned MacKenzie Gore. So that is 6 names that you have to rank.
All right, rattle them off again real quick.
I will rattle them off. Detmers, Christopher Sanchez, Bryce Miller, Nick Lodolo, Ronel Blanco, MacKenzie Gore.
All right, so I think I'm looking at my roto rankings, and this was before their most recent starts, but they were all good, so I don't think it changes much. I had it Miller, Gore, Detmers. Those 3 are all top 50 starting pitchers for me. Then I had...
there's one who definitely moved up this weekend.
Yeah, Lodolo was 58 before this start. I think he's got to be top 50 after this. Then, gosh, I thought I had the names ready, and which ones am I missing?
Sanchez and Blanco. I
think there's a drop after that. And I don't know if you guys agree. I found Christopher Sanchez kind of underwhelming this season. The control hasn't been what we hoped it would be, and it hasn't come with like a giant increase in whiffs to make up for it. So that's a little bit disappointing. I still think he, should be rostered in all formats, but it's Sanchez and then Blanco for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, I can come up with 4 pitchers on this list I like more than Christopher Sanchez, and they are in order: Reed Detmers, Nick Lodolo, MacKenzie Gore. After this most recent start, I'm going to move him up to 3rd on that list, and Bryce Miller. Those are the top 4. I'll go Christopher Sanchez 5th and Ronel Blanco 6th. I'm just trying to decide if I agree with the sentiment that I found Christopher Sanchez to be a little underwhelming. The walk rate hasn't been as good. The control hasn't been as good. And that was a concern as he was attempting to throw harder, and he has been throwing harder. But, I mean, his start Friday was good. It was a good start. It's the Pirates, 14 whiffs on 91 pitches, 1 earned run in 6 innings. In fact, 2 of his 3 starts have been good. Yeah, 2 of his 3 starts have been good. I'm
saying relative to expectations, right? Because he had this big improvement in control last year. We had this 1, the new cutter, and then 2, the increase in velocity. The hope, I think, was that either he would sustain the improved control and have this increased velocity that made him harder to hit and help him pick up a few more strikeouts, or that if he lost the control, he could go back to throwing a little less hard and get the control back. And so far, it's kind of just been like neither of those. He hasn't been bad. It's a 3.50 ERA and 2 out of 3 good starts. It's just underwhelming.
I mean, he was like the 70th starting pitcher drafted on average, according to
I still think he's around
I think he's lived up to that.
Right,
beyond
right.
that.
I mean more like the breakout talk that we had specifically on this, but I don't think he was like. I think we liked him more than most.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that on Sanchez. Anything else you got? Like, we didn't really talk about Lodolo here, but obviously we should. It was his first start back. He had 16 swinging strikes on 91 pitches. It was against the White Sox, and that lineup is completely depleted. I mean, it wasn't very good coming into the season. It's even worse now.
I mean, Gavin Sheets is by far the best hitter in that lineup right now, right? I guess Andrew Vaughn, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's pretty gross.
It was a bad lineup to begin with, and it's without its only two good hitters. So I'm usually not one to hold the opposition against a pitcher who has a good start against it. There's probably a better way to word that. Sometimes you're like, hey, look at this amazing start, and 1,000 people will respond with, look at the opponent. Like that's, like they weren't facing a major league team, one of the 30 best teams in the world. But the White Sox might not be one of the best.
Yeah,
I mean,
Norfolk
teams in the world.
Tides right now versus Chicago White Sox.
Having said that, Nick Lodolo's pitch selection and velocity were all very similar to before the leg injury. And whatever you want to say about how he performed in 2023, getting strikeouts was not a problem. And he got a ton of strikeouts and a ton of whiffs, and that's what I care about most from a starting pitcher. So I was very impressed by Nick Lodolo. Obviously, he moves. It's between him and Max Meyer, which pitcher gained the most in the rankings this weekend, I would say. But I would prefer Nick Lodolo between the two.
Yes.
I think there's a chance he has a huge breakout this year. That's what a lot of people were predicting for him going into last year.
Where would you rank Garrett Crochet among that group?
Because he had a bad start, his first bad start.
Still a ton of strikeouts, yeah.
He pitches for a bad team that's not going to get much run support. He has some of the clearest durability concerns of this group, I would say. Probably the most severe durability
and just none of the other guys have like Max Meyer probably has an innings limit coming off Tommy John surgery, but like Crochet might throw 100 innings this season even if he stays healthy.
I'm tempted to keep Garrett Crochet. Like, my initial instinct is to keep Garrett Crochet at the top of this list of all these pitchers we're talking about. Detmers, Lodolo, who else? MacKenzie Gore. My initial instinct is to keep Garrett Crochet ahead of all of them. But it kind of feels like a college football ranking thing, where like, well, we had Oklahoma ranked 4th at the start. So we can't have this team that we ranked 8th at the start overtake Oklahoma when Oklahoma hasn't lost yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, just Crochet has the advantage of incumbency. Maybe
I think Crochet is maybe the hardest player to value in fantasy right now.
Yeah,
because he might be a top 20 starting pitcher
on a per inning basis,
but he's not going to be a top 20 starting pitcher the rest of the way. And every start he makes, he becomes less valuable because he has a finite number of innings. I mean, I guess every pitcher does, but his is presumably a really low number because he's only thrown 85 innings since 2020.
All right, so here's the exact numbers on Garrett Crochet from Saturday. He allowed 5 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings, walked 3, struck out 10. It wasn't a great start. Everything was down 1 to 1.5 miles per hour, and yet he still had the 10 strikeouts. He still had 15 swinging strikes on 92 pitches. His ERA is up to 3.57 now, but that's to go with a 2.44 xFIP and a 1.58 xERA. So, like, Garrett Crochet has outperformed his ERA significantly at this point, as good as we already thought he was. And I can't confidently say he's going to be better than Detmers and Nick Lodolo from this point forward, especially when you take into account the team context. But I'm just with the kind of, is it 4 starts he's had so far?
I think
the
so.
4 starts he's had so far have just been too good I think, for me to drop him behind those, even with sort of the tangential concerns there for Garrett Crochet.
Chat wants us to note that the umpire was squeezing Crochet. I did not watch that start, so
that is good to know.
I have not seen a good performance from an umpire yet in a game I've watched. I don't know what's going on with the strike zone, but it's been bad this year.
I was out Friday night. MLB Network was on. They showed an at bat with Wyatt Langford. I instantly had to tweet how bad
that one was really bad. This is, and I will say,
I didn't know it was Angel Hernandez.
We can measure how accurate umpires are. And everybody gets mad at me and everybody yells at me when I say this. Umpires are more accurate every year than the year before. That is objectively true. I don't know if it's been true so far this year.
Overall,
it has been true. Oh no, I'm just saying it has been true every single year for like 17 years in a row that we've been able to track it.
I'd like to know. I honestly have no idea how to look it up, but I have, for the most part, I've been impressed with how accurate umpires are since we got the strike zone on the broadcast.
That's just my hobby horse.
By and large, I'm like, wow, these guys get it right so often. But this year has been the one time where I'm like, normally I'd watch a game and I'd see 2 or 3 missed calls. And now it's like I watch an inning and I see 2 or 3 missed calls. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like every game I watch.
Mm-hmm. We're ramping into shape.
Maybe you're just watching
total anecdotal thing, but
I was gonna say maybe you're just watching every Angel Hernandez.
I don't think so.
Bad. He's got to go. Anyway, what I was gonna say, just putting a bow on this breakout pitcher conversation, I think Detmers is the only one I would take ahead of him, just because I really don't have any workload concerns. Mm-hmm. You can make the argument Nick Lodolo has injury concerns, obviously, and I think we have
Gore did miss time in 2022 with a forearm strain.
I think
that's the one with him.
I think we have the Crochet conversation later on. Like I think once we get to May, assuming he makes it that far.
Yeah, I mean, but we have to have the conversation.
No, I think that's the
thing that's the thing that's really tough. Is
another hang up for me that I haven't mentioned yet is Detmers and Gore have both faked us out before.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates a certain level of mistrust.
I've never been a Gore believer. Even like last year, he had like a sub-3 ERA through the first 2 months of the season or whatever it was. He was really good. I never bought it because it was like 70% fastballs and he wasn't getting lifts with the other pitches. He didn't have a changeup. Like I think
I'm thinking more of when he first broke in with the Padres and had like a 1-something ERA for 2 months.
But he needs to sustain the gains he's made. But if he does, I think MacKenzie Gore can be very good.
All right, let's take our first break. When we return, we will talk about Max Meyer here on Fantasy Baseball Today.
The best couch potatoes come from Pluto TV country.
And these taters, they like all sorts of different things.
Survivor Channel, Ink Master Channel.
If it's got a spaceship in it, I'm probably watching it.
3 channels dedicated to CSI.
Whatever mood you're in, it's going to be easy watching.
Welcome back in. Let's talk about some waiver wire pitchers. Max Meyer at the top of that list. He's turned in back-to-back quality starts. This one was against the Atlanta Braves. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 0 walks, 23 swinging strikes on 91 pitches. 12 of those came on the slider, 7 on the fastball, 4 on the changeup. He did allow some hard contact, but man, he just leaned all the way into that slider. 54% usage on that pitch, and it was awesome in this start. He has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in all 3 starts. It's a 2.12 ERA. It's a .82 WHIP, 54% rostered. Max Meyer, do you emerge from this weekend saying he is the top waiver wire ad among pitchers that are, like 75% rostered or less?
What's Lodolo?
Yeah, that's the problem. So Lodolo 79, MacKenzie Gore 74, Gavin Stone is 68. Meyer's 52. I would put him right there with I think Javier Assad's been pretty impressive. I think Spencer Turnbull's been pretty impressive, but he wasn't good this week. I'd probably take Max Meyer over both of those guys, but I think the team context for both Assad also being a Sparp helps. I think could make it close.
I don't think those guys are especially good. I mean, I know they've been good, but I don't.
I'm interested in Turnbull. this new sweeper, the team context. We'll see if he stays in the rotation. But
I mean, he
think
wasn't very good this weekend.
Yeah, no, his most
he had
recent
2 good
start
starts, and then he had a bad start this weekend. I actually took him out of my sleeper pitchers for this upcoming week, even though he's facing the White Sox. I'm not saying he's not a sleeper pitcher anymore, but I had others that I wanted to get in there instead. And, obviously Turnbull hasn't been good for most of his career to this point. But no, getting back to Max Meyer. So like I was saying earlier, it's between him and Nick Lodolo, which starting pitcher moves up most in my rankings based on this weekend. They're 2 of the biggest risers. Max Meyer's first 2 starts were solid, but less than a strikeout per inning. The whiff rate was okay. In the 2 starts, Max Meyer had a 10% swinging strike rate. That's actually not very good. So I wasn't totally sold on Max Meyer, but for him to do this against the Atlanta offense, 23 swinging strikes on 91 pitches. He got 12 on the slider, 7 on the fastball, 4 on the changeup, which he threw only 15% of the time. And because of that, because he got all those whiffs on all those different pitches, now for the year, Max Meyer, both of his off-speed pitches, both the changeup and the slider, have a 40% whiff rate or better. 2 pitches with a whiff rate that high is rarely seen. And this is from a pitcher who throws very hard too, is capable of getting some swinging strikes on the fastball as well. So, I mean, he's going to run into workload issues eventually too, will Max Meyer, but I think this start for sure locked him up as a member of the Marlins rotation as others start returning from injury. And I think this was the first start where he showed us the extent of his upside. And considering it was just his 3rd start back from Tommy John surgery, something to get excited about.
I think I would take both Lodolo and Gore ahead of Meyer. How about you, Scott?
I would too. Yeah. And their roster rates reflect that, right? What's Gore at?
Yeah. Gore is at 75 and Lodolo's at 79.
Yeah. So
Max Meyer, much more available, 54%.
Right.
Would you go ahead.
But I'd put Meyer. I don't think I'd take him over Gavin Stone either. But he's like right there. He's right at that level in the rankings now for me, so I'd take him over like Luis Heel, I think, who's looked good with the strikeouts so far.
So I had a trio of starting pitchers that were under 70% rostered. Meyer, Gavin Stone, and Andrew Abbott. They all pitched well this weekend. Chris, how would you rank those 3?
I think I would go Stone, Meyer, Abbott.
Me too. Now I think Abbott's performance this weekend probably assured he stays in the rotation because they have to bump somebody with Nick Lodolo back. I guess Nick Martinez, who has some relief experience, would make the most sense. But
I think they already announced that too.
They already announced that, yeah. Okay,
there are some. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was just going to keep talking.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask, if you don't have an IL spot, would you drop Kyle Bradish to pick up Max Meyer?
Well, probably not with Bradish starting a rehab assignment now. I guess that's going to take a while.
What? Yeah.
But you've gone this far with Bradish. I think I'd have a difficult time pulling the plug on that.
Would you drop Brandon Pfaadt?
Yes, easily. I wasn't the biggest Pfaadt guy to begin with.
Who'd you say, Chris?
Charlie Morton.
Yeah, I'd drop Morton for Meyer.
Yeah.
Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Had the setback. Nestor Cortez and Luis Severino.
Yes, to both.
Okay. All right.
I think that's fine. I'm pretty excited about Meyer. I would actually put him ahead of Gavin Stone. Stone took a perfect game into the 6th inning in this start this weekend, and he wound up with a quality start, 6 2/3, 2 runs allowed, 4 strikeouts, 14 swinging strikes. But overall, I mean, he's been a little underwhelming, I guess, so far. The swinging strike rate is still really good. I like both. I mean, they obviously both had a lot of prospect pedigree, but I just think I like what I've seen more from Max Meyer. It is close between both of those 2 names. Let's get into, there's so much news and notes from the weekend. We should probably mention Spencer Strider is out for the year. I mean, we had suspicions, but now it's already been confirmed that he underwent an internal brace procedure and will miss the rest of this season. I guess the hope with that internal brace is that the rehab won't be as long as a normal Tommy John surgery. Speaking of Tommy John, Shane Bieber did have that earlier in the week, so we will miss both of those guys for the rest of this year, obviously. I don't think there's really anything else to add. It sucks, but
I think it's if Spencer Strider had to have surgery to repair his ulnar lateral ulnar collateral ligament. This is the best case scenario. The internal brace procedure is better than having a full-blown Tommy John surgery, which he had already had, I think, in college. This is not a second Tommy John surgery. It's internal brace procedure, which is basically strengthens and supports the existing ligament. And it's a relatively new procedure that we haven't really seen a lot internally. Of pitchers have. Trevor Story had it. Brock Purdy had it.
I think Ohtani had it.
Reese Hoskins had it. Shohei Ohtani.
They have been very cagey about what specific surgery he had. It's real. I guess
I just think because the name internal bracing procedure hasn't been universally accepted yet, so they just not everyone is in agreement over the terminology. Is my what I've kind of read between the lines there. But no, the point you were bringing up, we haven't seen a lot of pitchers have it, and so I'm glad Strider's going to be back sooner. It sounds like maybe he could even be back at the start of next year, but we know we're less confident how it's going to go. You know,
looks like Lucas Giolito had it as well.
Obviously hasn't returned yet, but yes.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the rest of the news and notes. Another pitcher injury. This one not an elbow, but still pretty severe. Bobby Miller to the IL with right shoulder inflammation. A source said the injury is, quote, not severe. Miller is hopeful to begin throwing again as soon as next week. Okay, if they say so. Who will be taking his spot in the Dodgers rotation?
Yeah, that's a good question. They have choice. They have options.
I know Emmett Sheehan was recently shut down again.
Yeah, and his is a forearm strain. So that was one where I think initially they were like, oh, he's just body soreness, and now he has a forearm strain. So I wouldn't think he's. I mean, there's Kyle Hurt would be the most exciting choice. I think it might be Walker Buehler in roughly 10 days. He left his rehab start over the weekend early, but it was because he got hit by a comebacker on his hand. So assuming everything's fine with that, he looks like he's pretty close. So it might just be bullpen day and then Walker Buehler.
Yeah, I can see that happening as well. Rafael Devers has missed 4 straight with left shoulder soreness. He did go through a pregame workout Sunday, and manager Alex Cora expects him back in the lineup Monday. Speaking of which, I hope you're waking up early, or, when normal people wake up, because I obviously wake up later in the day. There's an 11 o'clock game in Boston. That happens every year. It's the Patriots Day. It's Boston Marathon. So they're playing at 11 o'clock. If you're on the West Coast, good luck, because there is an 8 o'clock game. So just keep that in mind for your Red Sox and your Guardians. Christian Yelich left Friday after one at bat and then didn't play Saturday and Sunday due to lower back discomfort. And Scott, we spoke about Yelich just last week. This is the only thing that can slow him up, is this lingering back injury. Manager Pat Murphy said Yelich may require a trip to the IL. Joey Wiemer, Blake Perkins, and Sal Frelick started in the outfield on Sunday. That was because Jackson Churio got the day off. But yeah, it sucks because Yelich is off to an amazing start. Luis Robert, who is on the IL with a hip injury, is trending toward a 6-week absence. They released like 6 to 8 weeks initially, so now they're saying, I guess, it looks a little bit more optimistic for Luis Robert. Jake Berger left Sunday's game with left oblique discomfort. He was replaced by Emmanuel Rivera. Garrett Cole played catch again on Thursday, his second time since being placed in the IL. Aaron Boone said everything went well. Framber Valdez told reporters that he's hoping to resume throwing on Tuesday. He was placed on the IL earlier in the week with left elbow soreness. Josh Lowe, we haven't heard about him in a while. He will play in 2 more extended spring training games, and if all goes well, he could be sent out on a rehab assignment. He's on the IL with a grade 1 right oblique strain. Justin Verlander could make his season debut Friday against the Nationals. He threw 77 pitches in a rehab start Saturday. Let's say this is announced Monday. My guess is you probably wouldn't want to start Verlander, right? First start back.
I mean, you like the matchup there against the Nationals, so it does depend somewhat on the context of the league and what else you have. But all things being equal, I always prefer to give a pitcher one start.
Yeah. Walker Buehler, as you mentioned, left his rehab start Friday after getting hit on the right hand by a comebacker. Dave Roberts said Buehler will make his next rehab start on Thursday. Jordan Montgomery is set for his D-backs debut Friday at the Giants. He got up to 71 pitches in his final rehab start. And like you just said, I think we'd like to sit Jordan Montgomery his first time out, see how that one goes. Justin Steele threw a 25-pitch bullpen session Saturday, his first time since suffering a grade 1 left hamstring strain. Brian Wu threw an up-down bullpen session Friday and could head out on a rehab assignment with AAA at some point this week. Gavin Williams is scheduled to throw a simulated game Monday, his first time facing live hitters since he felt discomfort in his right elbow. Kyle Bradish threw a bullpen session Saturday and said he's ready to begin a rehab assignment at AA around the middle of this week. Edward Cabrera will make another rehab start at AAA this Wednesday. Salvador Perez was removed Sunday with left groin and hip injuries. If you have Perez, you might want to just make sure you have another catcher on your bench just in case you need to plug in there. Rangers manager Bruce Bochy said after Friday's game that Jose Leclerc will be working low leverage situations temporarily. He pitched in the 6th inning Friday with David Robertson pitching in the 8th and Kirby Yates pitching in the 9th. How have you guys been handling the Rangers bullpen just with fab bids this weekend?
I'm not dropping Leclerc since it sounds like Bruce Bochy's ultimate goal is to get him back in the 9th inning. And they did say they were happy with how he performed in the 6th. He put on a couple of base runners, so I don't know. I don't know. I did, however, in those leagues, those 15-team roto leagues where saves are very scarce, I did put in about $50 bids out of 1,000, so 5% of my budget towards Kirby Yates, who appears to be second in line behind Leclerc and not David Robertson, like we originally thought. Yates is off to a good start, has plenty of closing experience himself. I have 3 15-team roto leagues like that. I won Yates in one of them for about a $50 5% bid, and in the other 2 he went for more like 12%.
Yeah,
that's everything I've seen.
That seemed like too much.
It's going to be over 10%, and honestly, if you don't want to spend 10% of your budget, it might be smarter to just throw 5 out of 1,000 on David Robertson, and just in case, if you've got a roster spot to play with.
Yeah, it's like it'd be different if they said, yeah, Leclerc's out of the job.
Yeah.
And too bad. Like certainly if they said we're going with Kirby Yates now, maybe you throw 20% of your budget, but there needs to be more certainty than what we're seeing for it to be as much as I saw other people spending on Yates.
Paul Sewald threw an 18-pitch bullpen session Saturday, his first bullpen since going on the IL with an oblique injury. Jamison Tyone will return from the IL this week. He's 14% rostered. Any interest in Jamison Tyone?
I thought about writing about him for the waiver wire piece that's up on CBSSports.com Sunday afternoon, but there are enough interesting pitchers who are fairly widely available that I think if I was going to add somebody, I'd rather take the chance on Yariel Rodriguez, for instance, who I thought was pretty interesting this weekend, or
Jose Butto?
Jose Butto for sure. So yeah, Tyone could absolutely be useful, but I'm not rushing out to add him.
Junior Caminero was activated from the IL and was back in the AAA lineup Sunday. The Rays could certainly use him, so if he starts to hit, I think perhaps we could see Junior Caminero pretty soon. Eduardo Rodriguez experienced further tightness in his left shoulder after throwing a bullpen earlier in the week. He's been shut down. Cardinals manager Oliver Marmol said both Tommy Edman and Dylan Carlson will ramp up their rehab on Monday. Michael Lorenzen will make his Rangers debut Monday, and I believe that makes him a 2-start pitcher at the Tigers and at the Braves.
It does.
Any interest?
No way in a roto league you can start him. I don't think.
I don't think so.
No.
Either.
Who did I have going into the weekend? We talked about him as a sleeper. I don't remember who it was, but I actually ranked Michael Lorenz. Oh, it was Cody Bradford, who's now on the IL.
Yeah, I think
I kind of liked him as a sleeper for this week, but I like Lorenzen less.
I think you could maybe adding Lorenzen. I think is reasonable. But I don't think you can start him in a roto league, especially.
Now, I mean, at the Tigers could work out, but at the Braves, ooh,
Sure, if you have the opportunity to take him out after the Tigers start, but even then, it's his first start.
He's just not very good. He fooled us. I mean, he didn't fool me personally, but he fooled people for 4 months last year, and then he got traded to the Phillies, and the truth came out.
All right. Each of Alex Bregman and Tim Anderson missed all 3 games this weekend due to illness. The Braves recalled Darius Vines, and he'll start Monday against the Astros. He is 4% rostered. Do we have any interest in Darius Vines?
He's kind of green.
I kind of like him, but I this might be a one and done situation. Certainly if it goes like Alan Winans started for the Braves. I mean, Bryce Elder's still hanging out there as somebody they could turn to.
He kind of creeps up on you.
So Scott did not like the pitcher who threw a no-hitter last year, but he likes the Atlanta Braves fringe prospect.
Well, we're talking about 2 different levels of rostership here. We're talking about Vines nobody cares about at all. Lorenzen, too many people care about. That's
I mean, Lorenzen's only 23% rostered.
Yeah, but it's going to go up.
One more name, pitching prospect Nick Nastrini will make his MLB debut for the White Sox Monday against the Royals. And in the minors, he has a ton of strikeout upside, big fastball, big slider, lots of swing and miss, but also trouble with the control. And I don't know, how much faith do you have in the White Sox development? Is it just a name to watch for now? Nick Nastrini, anything there?
I mean, he hasn't been the White Sox project for long, has he? So I don't know how much we could credit
Yeah, I think he came over last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At some point, yeah. From the Dodgers, so.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, he's not high-end enough of a pitching prospect to get the benefit of the doubt on the White Sox.
Yes. All right, fair enough. Names that went to the IL this weekend, Carlos Correa with a mild right intercostal strain. Brandon Lau was officially moved to the IL with that right oblique strain. Unfortunately, Cody Bradford with lower back soreness. Marco Gonzalez with a left forearm strain. My first thought was, oh my, it's time for Paul Skeens. But then I remembered that Quinn Priester's on the 40-man roster. So
no, they pretty quickly ruled out Skeens as a possibility. It's annoying. I don't know how you can look at everything and think that the thing that makes the most sense is having him throw 102 miles an hour in AAA, but whatever. They're not asking me.
I think the cue for Skeens' time will be when he first goes 4 inning in a start.
Yeah, when he throws more than 3 innings in an outing.
And then goes 5 innings in a start. Okay, now they're ramping him up to call him up. I think they're playing it cautiously with him, preserving those innings, and then they're going to ramp him up at some point. May
1st, baby. Let's get it. Paul Skeens. Let's take our final break. When we return, how much can we get to in 20 minutes? I don't know. We're going to find out right after this.
2 big boys getting ready to play.
Big being the operative word here.
And here they come.
All right, waiver wire hitters from the weekend. Michael Busch, we already spoke about him. Jordan Westburg is also off to a nice start his last 5 games. 6 hits, 2 homers, 2 steals. He's 50% rostered, has second and third base eligibility. We know we've lost a lot of third basemen already. Josh Young, Royce Lewis. We just lost Jake Berger this weekend. That's an oblique. My guess is he's probably going to wind up on the IL. We're not taking Westburg over Michael Busch, right? Obviously.
Nope.
No, but
we like
there's a lot of interesting things going on. 94 mile per hour average exit velocity, 59.5% hard hit rate for him.
I'd like him
speed there.
I'd like him if he played literally anywhere else. I just think like if Ryan Mountcastle couldn't make it work at Camden Yards, the new Camden Yards, I don't see how any right-handed hitter is going to make it work.
But what about Ryan Mountcastle with 10 to 15 steals?
Yeah, that's the thing is that
that's pretty fun.
I guess it depends on what we mean. I could see Jordan Westburg being a top 20 second baseman, and there are certain leagues where that matters. I can't see him being a top 10 second baseman.
Fair enough. Waiver wire outfielders from the weekend. Welcome back to Lars Nootbaar, who went 1 for 4 with a home run on Saturday, went 1 for 3 with an RBI on, the home run came on Friday, 1 for 3 with an RBI on Saturday. He's 50% rostered. The Cardinals have the 5th best hitter matchups this week. Sal Frelick continues to pick up hits. He had 5 of them this weekend. He added his 3rd stolen base. Brenton Doyle is off to a nice start for the Rockies. He went 3 for 5 on Friday and then 1 for 4 with his 3rd home run on Saturday. Dalton Varsho, back-to-back games with a home run for him. One of them was a grand slam on Saturday. Chris, how would you rank those waiver wire outfielders? Nootbaar, Sal Frelick, Brenton Doyle, and Dalton Varsho.
It's entirely context dependent, depending on what format you play in. Varsho, I think I'd rank Varsho at the top for a roto league, either him or Nootbaar, then Frelick, then Doyle. In points leagues, I think Nootbaar is the only one that might matter, maybe Frelick, but I think they're all pretty fringy in points leagues.
I like Nootbaar and Frelick the most here, and I think they're also the most points league relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Mason Wynn is quietly off to a solid start. Back-to-back multi-hit games on Friday and Saturday. He already has 2 steals. He's batting .349 early on, a 32% line drive rate, and a .282 expected batting average that was entering Sunday. He's only 29% rostered. I mentioned the Cardinals have pretty good matchups this week as well. I think this is more so just for roto-size leagues, Scott, leagues that have a middle infield spot, but I like what I've seen so far from Mason Wynn.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fact that the strikeout rate is around 20% is the big, like, he was striking out so much this spring that I actually dropped him in a 15-team, 450-player rostered league. I regret that now. He's no more than middle infield viable, and I'd still rather have like a Jose Caballero there than a Mason Wynn. But Mason Wynn looks better, certainly better this year than he did during that month and a half we saw him last year.
2 names in deeper leagues. What year is it? Because Jesse Winker might be a thing. 4 for 4 with a home run on Friday. He went 1 for 4 with his 2nd steal of the season on Saturday. And then Abraham Toro, who is only 6% rostered. No, he's 1% rostered. Excuse me. He has led off 7 straight games for the A's. He had a 3-hit game with a stolen base on Saturday. Chris, any interest here? Deeper leagues, Jesse Winker, Abraham Toro?
I think that 1% might literally just be me in the Scott White Dynasty League for
Toro.
Abraham Toro. Winker, I mean, he's making a ton of contact. The quality of that contact so far has not been especially good, certainly not as good as it was at his best. So in an only league, I think it's okay. But other than that, I don't think Jesse Winker or Abraham Toro really matters.
I'm much more curious about Jesse Winker, and in fact, in some of my in like all of my deepest leagues, I picked him up before the start of the season, including the Scott White Dynasty League. And yeah, I see what you're saying about that the average exit velocity is more like the previous 2 years when he wasn't good than during his heyday with the Reds. But he had a good spring, and he's off to a good start, and the plate discipline is so good. And I don't know. I'm keeping an open mind. I mean, we were ragging on Anthony Volpe for his average exit velocity at this time a week ago, and now suddenly that's been corrected. He's been hitting the ball much harder on average lately and is looking even more like the real deal. So hopefully Jesse Winker will follow suit. Something seems different about him than the past 2 years.
I think I read this spring. Obviously, he's had a ton of injuries, and I know he had some, I think, multiple surgeries last year. And I think I remember reading that finally feels healthy after all these surgeries that he's had. So it could just be as simple as that Jesse Winker is healthy and he's on a team that's going to give him every opportunity to play in the Washington Nationals. We spoke about Colton Cowser earlier. He is obviously awesome right now and needs to be rostered in every league. He's 78% rostered. Taylor Ward has also been really, really good. He hit 2 more home runs this weekend. He's up to 5 homers, 1 steal, 78% rostered. So we're talking really shallow league stuff here, 10-team leagues, maybe some 12-team points leagues. But if you had to make the decision, Cowser versus Taylor Ward, which way would you go?
Cowser.
Chris?
I guess I'd have to go Cowser just because he's a bigger deal right now, and you're not going to have a chance to get him if you don't get him right now. But I think Taylor Ward's probably pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you think anything's changed? Because he's what, 30? Yeah, he's 30. And
I feel like he's been dealt a bad hand, man. Like he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. A couple of years ago, I think he crashed into a wall while making a defensive play. Last year, he got hit in the face. It's just
I'm just surprised by all this Taylor Ward enthusiasm. I mean, obviously he's off to a hot start, but normally a player with his track record off to a hot start, we'd be like, it's Taylor Ward. We know this is how it's going to turn out.
Last year, if he stays healthy, he probably gets to about 25 homers. I don't think he's great, but that's the pace he was on. He got to 23 the year before. I don't think he's a great hitter, but I think he's viable. It's
that year before 2022 stands out as the outlier of his career.
Right.
And maybe that's I don't think it's crazy to think Taylor Ward could hit 275 with 75 homers, 80 RBI, and
75
25 homers, 275 with 25 homers, 80 RBI, and be like a top 36 outfielder. But Colton Cowser could be a top 20 outfielder.
Sure, right. No, I agree with that. That's why I think Cowser has more upside that's worth chasing, and just he's the big name right now. If you don't add Colton Cowser right now, you're never going to have him.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about waiver wire pitchers. And part one, it was Meyer, Gavin Stone, Abbott. Did both of you guys rank those? I remember. I think so, though.
Yes.
I agreed with Chris. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so waiver wire pitchers part two, we had Paul Blackburn, who has yet to allow a run this season, 6 1/3 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts against the Nationals. Graham Ashcraft looked pretty good at the White Sox, 5 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts in that one. Javier Assad continues to pitch well. He was at the Mariners, 5 2/3, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, and Kenta Maeda turned in his first quality start. He was up against the Twins, a revenge game. 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts for him. How would you guys rank Maeda, Assad, Ashcraft, and Paul Blackburn?
I don't like any of them that much. I'm kind of leaning Ashcraft number 1 here over Maeda because, and this was something I just noticed after this latest start for Ashcraft. So it was against the White Sox, 8 strikeouts in 5 2/3 innings, 14 swinging strikes on 104 pitches. But before even including those numbers from that White Sox start, Graham Ashcraft had a 13.6% swinging strike rate coming into this start. His whiff rate on both his slider and cutter are way up because he's introduced this new sinker that he's throwing a lot, almost as much as those 2 pitches. So he's got 3 pitches now, and the 2 that he had before then are looking much more effective as a result. And maybe I'd see more opportunity for a breakthrough here for Ashcraft than any of those other 3.
I would say in a points league, I'd probably go with Assad just because he does have that SPARP eligibility. But if you didn't add him for the 2-start week, there's probably no reason to add him now.
2 names in deeper leagues and 2 names we have already mentioned. Yariel Rodriguez made his debut for the Blue Jays Saturday against the Rockies. 3 2/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. It was 12 swinging strikes on 68 pitches. The fastball and slider combined for 84% of his pitches. So mostly a 2-pitch pitcher, which we expected. 95.5 miles per hour on the fastball, and the slider spin rate, 2866 RPM. Really good stuff there for Yariel Rodriguez.
I was looking at the fastball spin rate. The fastball spin rate is top 5%. It's similar to Dylan Cease.
The other thing I would add is, he only threw the 2 pitches 84% of the time. He had a 5-pitch mix, but only leaned on those 2. He is one of these dudes who changes his arm slot regularly. Sometimes he's more over the top. Sometimes he's almost sidearm. And so while it is a 2-pitch primarily mix, there are many different looks that one, I could say maybe will help him get through lineups more than once or more than you would think. The other side of it could be that when film gets out on him, that gimmick goes away. So, but I thought he was super fun. I thought he was really interesting.
The characteristics on the 2 pitches, even beyond the arm slot stuff, were impressive. And I would rather gamble on Yariel Rodriguez than a lot of that guys on that previous list, than Paul Blackburn. Certainly,
sure.
I mean, I'm not sharing the Javier Assad love that Chris seems to have. So I would take. I was only looking at him in the 15 teamers, and I was prioritizing Yariel Rodriguez over him.
Fair enough there. Let's take a look at Jose Buto. We haven't talked about him yet. He looked great for the Mets on Sunday up against a Royals lineup that was seemingly crushing everybody entering this game. 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts, 16 swinging strikes on 91 pitches. Any interest in Jose Buto? This week he does face the Dodgers, so I don't love that, but look pretty good here, getting whiffs on a bunch of different pitches and stuff. So
yeah, I think he's worth adding. Had at least 4 whiffs on the 4-seamer slider and changeup. He's up to 15 strikeouts and 4 walks in 12 innings through his 2 starts. So yeah, I think he's absolutely worth adding. I mean, there are other guys that are similar, like Yaya Rodriguez and Ben Brown. I think I would put in a similar tier. None of them are likely to be must-start guys moving forward. And I do want to say part of why I like Javier Assad is he gets the Marlins this week. So, if you need someone for this week, I'd certainly prioritize him over Jose Buto, but Buto has more long-term upside, I think.
I don't get where Buto came from, because, even going back to last year, we see him start in the majors, and it's like, hey, this guy looks pretty good. But you look at the minor league numbers, and no, it's kind of reminding me of Christopher Sanchez in that way. Now, it took us a long time to come around to Christopher Sanchez.
I was thinking the same thing, Scott, actually.
Yeah.
I saw that it's just high walk rates everywhere. And I don't know, so far 2 starts this year, he's looked pretty good. So
last year he swapped out a slider for a cutter that seems to have helped. I don't know. It might be classified as a slider, but it's a harder pitch than he used to throw.
Who would you guys rather speculate on, Yariel Rodriguez or Jose Buto?
Yariel Rodriguez.
I think I'd go Buto.
So I guess that means I have to break the tie, and I kind of like both in deeper leagues. I'll go with Yariel Rodriguez, though. I think there's a little more mystery there with him. What do we do with these starting pitchers? 3 names that had pretty rotten starts this weekend. Kevin Gausman. He's actually been crushed 2 starts in a row.
Yeah.
He got the Rockies in their first game away from Coors Field. That is supposed to be a primo matchup. It did not turn out that way. 3 2/3 innings, 6 earned runs allowed. Still had 18 swinging strikes on 78 pitches, but he allowed lots of hard contact. The ERA sits at 11.57 so far. Blake Snell got knocked around in his second start. He was at Tampa Bay. 4 innings, 7 runs allowed. He gave up 2 homers in that start. And Jesus Luzardo, just a rough spot. I mean, he's coming off a bad start against the Yankees. Now he has to face the Atlanta Braves, who, A, they crushed the ball, and B, they probably have seen him before just being in the division. So it's a rough spot for Luzardo. But yeah, his ERA is up to 7.65 now as well. Are you guys starting all of these names this week? Gausman, Snell, Luzardo. There's just lots of questions.
Well, it has the list to be down. The one being most likely to start is Kevin Gausman, and the one I'd be least likely to start is Blake Snell.
I think we missed a lot of that because you were robot voiced.
Glitched. Okay.
I couldn't tell if it was happening or not. But it's
it was Gausman, Snell, and who? Luzardo?
Gausman, Snell, and Luzardo. Luzardo is at the Cubs this week. Snell is home against the D-backs, and Gausman is home against the Yankees.
I like Gausman most of those 3, even with the struggles lately, but I think he's got the toughest matchup. So if I was going to sit one of them, it might be him.
I mean, Gausman, we don't normally care about matchups, right?
Yeah, that's why
Snell's doing that Blake Snell thing again. That, I gave him a pass for the first start back, but he hardly even threw his slider in the second start, so he didn't have all 4 pitches going, and that's always been an issue from him. Which of his secondary pitches is he going to use, and which ones are working? And yeah, for each of the last 2 years, right? Or 3
Mhm.
years. 3 years. Each of the last 3 years. He hasn't been good until July
Yeah.
or June, at least. So I don't know. I'd be most likely to sit Snell. I'm not really worried about Gausman. You have a 23% swinging strike rate. You're doing something right.
The velocity was mostly fine in this one. There was a late dip down to like 90 over his last couple of pitches, but the fact that it bounced back from the previous start, I think, is a good sign. So I'm not too concerned about Gausman, but obviously just because he had that shoulder injury in the spring, I can't say I'm as unconcerned as I would be otherwise. But for the most part, I think Gausman is clearly ahead of Luzardo and Snell.
Let's wrap up with some leftovers from the weekend. Just some huge performances. Marcell Ozuna just picking up right where he left off. 2 more homers. He is up to 7 home runs now on the season, which is tied for the league lead. He also has 21 RBI already, which is just it's April 15th. Like, what is going on? Adolis Garcia looks like he might be back to running, at least early on. He's got 4 homers, 4 steals. Last season, he was down to 9 steals after 25 in 2022. Tyler O'Neill, 2 for 3 with his 7th home run of the season on Sunday. So him and Ozuna are both tied. And Jose Altuve had a monster game on Sunday, 3 for 5 with 2 socks and a shoe. He is batting .382, 5 homers, and 1 steal early on in the season. Some pitching leftovers. Got to highlight Joe Ryan. Chris was giving us a bunch of crap before the show. I get it. So far, he's looked really good. Set a new career high, 12 strikeouts at the Tigers, 6 innings, 3 runs. Only one of those was earned. He had 19 swinging strikes on 96 pitches. And my concern with him coming into the year was the secondary pitches. Those have looked pretty good so far. So
And they're different and new.
Yes.
He's throwing both the slider and the splitter harder than he did last season. He went back to drive line over the offseason to work on those. Fastballs looked really good. I think we have reason to be concerned about Joe Ryan that the fastball gets figured out and he relies on that so much, but looked really good so far.
So I said prior to the season that Joe Ryan was the bust pick I was most confident in. Not so confident anymore. I mean, when you come in and you're throwing your 2 main secondaries, what, 2 to 5 miles per hour harder?
Yeah, he's a
different pitcher.
He's a different pitcher. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Jose Barrios is off to a fantastic start. He faced the Rockies this weekend, 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts there, 17 swinging strikes on 100 pitches, and he is throwing his slurve more this season. He had 10 of those 17 whiffs came on that slurve pitch. He's also getting more ground balls. I don't know. This might be the best version of Barrios that we've seen. I want to see more, but so far so good with him. And anybody else really worth mentioning?
He is throwing that cutter has not been a big part of his arsenal, but he is throwing it to lefties in particular about, I don't know, probably 15% of the time if I have to eyeball it. They don't. And so that's an interesting one because sinkers tend to be pretty bad pitches to opposite-handed hitters. And so, that's one wrinkle that could help Jose Barrios sustain some of this.
I want to point out that Christian Javier, his start over the weekend was the most encouraging of the year for him. It was against Texas. He went 7 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, but the 13 swinging strikes on just 89 pitches, that was a season high. It was his first even with double-digit swinging strikes. And 8 of the 13 came on the fastball, which is what he's going to need to succeed. He was relying a lot on a new changeup for his success, and I wasn't sure if that
I was not buying it.
Yeah,
I was not buying it personally. So it was good to see.
Let's run through some bullpen updates for the Pirates on Friday. David Bednar got the 9th with a 3-run lead. He pitched a clean inning for his 2nd save. Great to see. Obviously, he's gotten off to a little bit of a rough start. For the Mariners on Friday, Andres Munoz entered in the 8th inning with a 3-run lead to face 2, 3, and 4 in the Cubs lineup. It was Ryan Stanek who got the 9th inning. He did give up a solo home run, but picked up his 2nd save.
To Michael Busch.
Stanek is 4% rostered. Were you looking to add him? And any deeper category / roto leagues.
Yeah, those same leagues where I was bidding on Kirby Yates, I was bidding a fraction of that amount on Stanek. I was bidding like $6 out of 1,000. I don't think I got him anywhere.
you might get like 10 saves from him the rest of the way, I think.
Are you worried about Munoz though?
I'm worried that he might not get 35 saves and might only get 25 instead.
Right. It's annoying. All right. For the Blue Jays on Saturday, Chad Green pitched the 8th inning with a 2-run lead, facing 4, 5, and 6 in the Rockies lineup. Yimi Garcia struck out the side in the 9th for his first save. It sounds like Jordan Romano could be back any day now. For the Phillies on Saturday, Jose Alvarado pitched the 8th inning again, this time in a tie game, facing 4, 5, and 6 in the Pirates lineup. Jeff Hoffman pitched a clean 9th, and he wound up with the win. I feel like this is maybe the 3rd or 4th game in a row that Jeff Hoffman has pitched in the 9th inning.
That sounds right, because he's got a couple of saves, doesn't he?
I think Alvarado is truly just their highest leverage reliever. And if it's a tie game in the 8th and it's the heart of the lineup, it's going to be Alvarado.
And that's the highest leverage reliever usually gets the most saves. So I don't know how worried we should be. I know Ryan Kerkering is back from the IL this weekend. So, we'll see if he gets in that mix. That would be one other thing that could potentially be a complicating factor for Alvarado. But it could also be that having another high leverage reliever clears Alvarado to pitch in the 9th more. So
would you guys take Jeff Hoffman over Kirby Yates and or Ryan Stanek?
When I was putting in bids, I put it Hoffman, Yates, and then Stanek in that order.
I think that makes sense.
I agree.
All right. For the D-backs on Saturday, Kevin Ginkel got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He picked up his 3rd save. For the Twins on Saturday, game 1 of their doubleheader, Steven Okert pitched the 7th inning down 3-2. Griffin Jacks then pitched in the 8th inning with the game tied. And then Brock Stewart pitched in the 9th with the game tied. The Twins eventually won in extras. And then on Sunday, Griffin Jacks entered with 1 out in the 8th, a 2-run lead, runners on 1st and 3rd. He gave up a game-tying double, followed by an RBI single. Jacks took his first blown save and first loss. Can we just get Yohan Duran back? Because Twins bullpen has been a mess for fantasy. It might work for real-life purposes, but it's just been a mess for fantasy. For the Brewers on Sunday, Abner Uribe entered in the 7th inning with a 1-run lead, facing 8, 9, and 1 in the Orioles lineup. He gave up 2 runs, took his 2nd blown save and first loss.
This was a weird one.
This is getting messy too. It's getting messy too. Like Abner Uribe got those 3 saves right away, but he didn't exactly look good doing it. And now he appears in the 7th inning against not the meat of the order. I could see Yoel Payamps getting back involved here.
For the Marlins on Sunday, Tanner Scott got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up a 3-run homer to Marcell Ozuna, took his first blown save and 3rd loss. I just don't even know who to speculate on in the Marlins bullpen. It's not like anyone there has been.
Anthony Bender's been very good.
Has he?
Yeah, I think he's got like 11 strikeouts to 2 walks in 7 innings. He's given up a couple of runs, but who hasn't? The only thing I would say is like maybe AJ Puck. That decision might be coming next week, whether to take him out of the rotation. So that's the one to keep an eye on, I think.
And then for the Oakland A's on Sunday, Mason Miller got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He struck out the side and averaged 101.5 miles.
Before we go, I gotta say, man, watch this kid pitch. If you like, there are no other good reasons to watch the Oakland Athletics pitch. But oh my God, this guy is appointment viewing. Like he might be the most entertaining player in baseball right now. I'm not kidding. Mason Miller is absolutely electric. He is unbelievable out of the bullpen. I am having so much fun watching him pitch.
To stream or not to stream for Monday, and I think Seth Lugo at the White Sox.
Seth Lugo,
Martin Perez at the Mets.
Martin Perez at the Mets, maybe. Luis Gil at the Blue Jays is fine.
Yep. I think those are the 3.
Ben Brown at the D-backs?
Maybe Ben Brown at the D-backs. I don't know. I'd rather not.
All right. And then on Tuesday, might be cut off on the rundown. I'm not sure. But I'll give you a few names. Ranger Suarez up against the Rockies.
Easy call.
Yusei Kikuchi versus the Yankees. Garrett Whitlock versus Cleveland. Jose Quintana versus the Pirates. Lance Lynn versus the A's.
I've got Yusei Kikuchi in a lot of leagues, and I'm really struggling with whether I want to start him this week. He should be rostered. I think he's not far from that group of pitchers we talked about at the start of the pod. I think he's a top 60 guy. I'd rather have Yusei Kikuchi than Ronel Blanco. So
he looked
even
really,
if I'm not starting him, I want him on my team.
He looked really good against the Yankees when he faced them earlier in the season.
I think he's really good.
If you're forcing me to pick two from Tuesday, Ranger Suarez versus the Rockies, that's the only one that's a must. But then Yusei Kikuchi and Garrett Whitlock would be 2 and 3.
All right, we're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.